Hello, Galaxians! Yeah, I think Galaxian means citizen of the galaxy. Aren't you a citizen of the galaxy? I mean, isn't your planet in the galaxy? I suppose by starting my video like that, I just said screw you to everybody whose planet is not inside of a galaxy somewhere. So if your solar system is like a rogue solar system that drifted out of a galaxy somewhere, it's kind of like screw you. But no, I don't want to say screw you to those people. But nonetheless, hello Galaxians and anybody else, anywhere else in the universe or any parallel realm outside the universe. This universe or any other. Yeah, I'm just greeting everybody, and by saying Galaxian, that's getting me in an old video game mindset. Would have been perfect for Atari 2600 or maybe some old arcade games, you know, Galaga, Galaxian, whatever. But I'm kind of going Nintendo. I'm kind of going Super Nintendo with this one. Yeah, I'm talking about the SNES Classic, the Super Nintendo Entertainment System Classic. Yeah, I wasn't that into the NES Classic. The Retro Freak got more attention from me. Retrobit Generations, even if it wasn't that great of a system, you know, earned a little bit more of my attention. And the Nintendo Entertainment System was one of the game systems that really got me into video gaming alongside the Commodore 64 computer that I really wanted instead of the Nintendo Entertainment System. And there was also the Atari 2600 and the ColecoVision, but it was the Nintendo Entertainment System that gave me like the first Ninja Turtles game with its sense of adventure and storytelling. It gave me Zelda 1 and Zelda 2, both of which had a sense of adventure and storytelling, and the ability to save your game was pretty fucking awesome. Yeah. Yeah. I also wanted to play Ghostbusters on something, but the Nintendo Entertainment System version of Ghostbusters, not quite as good as the Commodore 64 or Sega Master System version of Ghostbusters. But anyway, yeah, I'm looking forward to the SNES Classic. I'm going to talk about it here. But first, a disclaimer. I love the Super Nintendo. I love a lot of these games. There's no game on the list that I literally hate. But I view a lot of the titles as overrated. And Nintendo fans often seem offended if you don't absolutely love something to the maximum. And I'm going to give my opinions on the games as I'm talking about the fact that they're there. And not everybody's going to like that. I'm sorry, but I love the Super Nintendo. All these games, better to have them than not have them. Hell, throw in a few random games just to add something else to it. That's fine by me. You can play them or not, whatever. But yeah, this looks like a great system. The Super Nintendo is one of my all-time favorite video game systems. I like it about equal to the Sega CD, though the Sega CD I don't consider to be an individual system. I view it as part of the Sega Genesis. But yeah, the Super Nintendo is right in the middle of my top 5 favorite video games. Or not favorite video games, video game systems. Yeah, there's 2 game systems I like more than the Super Nintendo. That'd be the Sega Genesis and the original Xbox. And 2 game systems I like a little bit less, but almost as much, would be the Sega Dreamcast and the Nintendo GameCube. So you can guess what my 2 favorite eras of video games are. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to talk about the Super NES Classic now. SNES Classic. And yeah, let's take a look at this thing. This thing's awesome. Look up information on it yourself as well as what I have to say. And let's talk about this thing. I'm really looking forward to this. Really excited. Well, I hope I can purchase one. Will it be available? I hope so. On to talking about this fucking thing, which looks awesome to me. Though I view the selection of games to be largely ones that were incredibly overrated. I'm really looking forward to this, nonetheless. I'm looking forward to this for the nostalgia of even the games I didn't enjoy that much. And, alright, first off, I'm going to start talking about my favorite game on the list. Mega Man X. I love that game. I already have the cartridge for the Super Nintendo. I can play it on the GameCube with the Mega Man X collection. Yeah, I can already play it, but I want to play it again on this device because I absolutely love Mega Man X. Do I have a problem with any of the Mega Man games? Yeah, they're not perfect. I wish you could shoot diagonally or straight up. I wish he could move his arm when he fires. I have that same problem with all the Mega Man games. I remember playing Ghostbusters on the Sega Genesis and Vector Man on the Sega Genesis, and just thinking, wow, I can fire in angles. And as iconic as Mega Man is, it just made those games, I can't say better, because I really love Mega Man. Mega Man is like a video game version of Astro Boy, and I loved Astro Boy. And I love Mega Man, especially if I've got to pick a Mega Man that I really love. What could I love more than the original Mega Man? Well, Mega Man X. It just had such an awesome story. I loved it. It always annoyed me that they didn't just pick a year. They'd always stick X's in there, which means it could be any time. No, it can't. If it's the year 2000X, like 200X, you're limited to the years 2000 through to 2009. You just up it a possible decade by saying the next game is in 20XX, you know, that bugged me. Same with Mega Man X. It's like, well, we're going to be a century in the future instead of a decade or so. It's like, no, just pick a fucking year. But, you know, that aside, I loved Mega Man X. The visuals, the music, the fucking story, that was an awesome game. Mega Man X is in there, so this is awesome. You know, awesome. Just absolutely awesome. Now, I'm going to get a little controversial, because this is one of the main reasons I want it, and a reason why a lot of people are going to want it. Star Fox. Yeah, Star Fox. Look, I'm kind of nostalgic for Star Fox, but I didn't get the appeal. When it was new, I remember a friend of mine renting it. He didn't buy it, but he rented it. And I remember, you know, I think I remember playing it. I remember him playing it, and thinking, okay, let's move on to something else. You know, it's like, some people were blown away by, it's got 3D graphics, and it's like, yeah, I can kind of see how that's an achievement, but it just wasn't anything special to me. It's like, 3D back then, to me, 3D was basically, on the PlayStation and Saturn, 3D was like what 2D was on the Atari 2600. It's like, yeah, cool, we could do 3D now. But it's not quite, you know, it's not quite a step up. It's just a step over to 3D. In fact, when it came to visual presentation, it was a step down. So to me, 3D on the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis was often like 2D on Atari Pong. Or maybe, yeah, I'll give it credit enough that it was like 2D on the Atari 2600. I'm not criticizing it. There were some games that definitely used 3D to great effect in the 16-bit era, but I just was not won over by Star Fox. The characters, the story, something about the cartoonishness. I love when cartoonishness is juxtaposed against like gritty science fiction-y stories and just adult concepts. But there was just something about the science fiction and cartoonishness of Star Fox that just didn't meld in a way that appealed to me. But that said, I still want to play it again because of nostalgia. I never did get a copy of Star Fox for the Super Nintendo, so unlike Mega Man X, this is one I don't actually own. And as for Star Fox 2, well, that one's never been released before. So this makes this a great curiosity because this is a first-time release for Star Fox 2. Sure, you don't get a cartridge, and you can only play it on one system because it's permanently loaded in this console, because this is a dedicated console. We're going back to Pong here, you know, a Coleco Telstar Alpha style. You can't change the games in the system, they're just in there. How very first generation is that, you know? I want a cartridge slot. But anyway, the idea of a system coming preloaded with a game, fine, whatever. You know, Star Fox 2, at least it's getting released. I'm more of a fan of Star Fox on the Nintendo 64, and I never really got into that. To me, the appeal of Star Fox 64, or Star Fox for the Nintendo 64, was the 4-player mode. To me, excuse me, to me, the Nintendo 64 was popular for a bunch of overrated games that were cool just because, oh, you could finally play 4 players. Which you could play 4 players before. It's just that the system came with the 4-player controller plugs already built in the system. You didn't have to get a tap, so more people were actually taking advantage of that. It's like GoldenEye. It's like, I don't really care if I play GoldenEye or not. But hey, if there's more than 2 of us sitting around looking for a game to play, yeah, maybe we'll play GoldenEye, you know? And some people are going to hate me for saying that. So much nostalgia for those games. But, you know, I just can't get super into some of those old games. But I still kind of like them, you know? I'm not totally hating them. But yeah, Star Fox. I didn't get that into Star Fox. I really like, well, the one that interested me the most is Star Fox Adventure on the GameCube. And people are like, well, that one's different. Screw that game. It's like, hey, I like that. I like that game. Well, actually, I never got around to playing that much of it. I played a little bit. Oh, I like this. Then I get distracted by something else. I need to play more Star Fox Adventure on the GameCube. But anyway, yeah. Star Fox and Star Fox 2, that's what I'm talking about now. Now I'm done talking about, because that's awesome that they finally released Star Fox 2, but they should have released it back then. I don't care if it would have drew attention away from the Nintendo 64, because it wouldn't have. People who were going to move on were going to move on anyway. Alright, so I talked about Mega Man X, Star Fox 1, Star Fox 2, alright. I think they're treating these 5 games as the premium titles on it. Super Mario World, Super Mario Kart, The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, F-Zero, and Super Metroid. Yeah, those are games that absolutely should have to be there because they're so iconic. I never played Super Metroid, so I'm going to talk about this one first, but I'm going to make this immune to my next statement. Super Metroid looks awesome. I never played it myself. I played a bit of the original Metroid, enjoyed it, but moved on, didn't care that much about it. Liked it, not criticizing it, but just never got that super into it. Super Metroid, always kind of interested in it. People love it. Hey, I'm not going to disagree because I haven't played it. F-Zero, I did play and enjoyed. I did enjoy F-Zero. So, yeah, I'm going to leave F-Zero immune to this statement, too. Super Metroid and F-Zero, I'm glad to see them there. And you know what? This statement for the next one, Super Mario World, Super Mario Kart, and The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past. Those are also 3 games that have to be there because of how iconic they are. To me, they were incredibly overrated. I remember friends of mine renting and playing Super Mario Kart and playing it myself. And it's like, very quickly, I was like, let's move on to something else. Doesn't have to be the most amazing title. Doesn't have to be something as great as Cybernator. You know, we could play, I don't care, it's something good. Let's play Arcana or Ninja Warriors, you know. It's like, I didn't get the appeal of Super Mario Kart. I loved it on the Nintendo 64, and I liked the Super Nintendo a hell of a lot more than I did the Nintendo 64. But the Super Nintendo version of Mario Kart, I can play it, I can appreciate it, I have a copy of it myself, but just not that into it. And I got the copy of it myself, I actually got the Japanese version. It has the novelty of the version of Donkey Kong in that game is Donkey Kong Jr. How often do you see Donkey Kong Jr. with Mario? There's some theories that the Donkey Kong of Donkey Kong Country might not be Donkey Kong the Third. He might actually be Donkey Kong Jr., but I think most people think he's Donkey Kong the Third. And the original Donkey Kong became Cranky Kong, whatever. But this is Donkey Kong Jr. In a cart, so to me that's kind of interesting. The reason why I picked up Super Mario Kart for the Super Nintendo, but I just didn't get the appeal of Mario Kart. That said, it should be on there. It should be on there. Yeah, I have a cartridge version of it. I'll probably barely play this one at all because I love Mario Kart on the Nintendo 64. Just didn't care about it at all on the Super Nintendo. As for Super Mario World and The Legend of Zelda, oh my, there were 3 things that drew my attention to the Super Nintendo. The Super Nintendo was what got me into the 16-bit era. It made me think that I wanted either a Super Nintendo or a Sega Genesis. And Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4, Super Mario World, and The Legend of Zelda were all games that I was interested in. But each one of those failed to entertain me as much as their 8-bit counterparts. I also really like Super Mario All-Stars. I think Super Mario All-Stars should be in there somewhere. Well, I don't really like Super Mario All-Stars all that much. I just like that it had those games redone. There's something about the physics of Super Mario World and Super Mario All-Stars that just didn't feel as good as the 8-bit counterparts. And I literally mean the physics, because the visuals were great, but whenever I play Super Mario World, I think to myself, I'd rather be playing Super Mario 3 or Super Mario 2, and as soon as I miss a jump or fuck something up, I just don't feel like playing a game. And that's not the same way with the older Super Mario Brothers games. I picked up Tiny Toons. It was actually Tiny Toons on the Sega Genesis, but it doesn't matter. I picked up like a platforming game, Tiny Toons, played a little bit of it, got really into it. I picked up the Sonic the Hedgehog games, get really into them fast. Pick up other Mario games, get into it really fast. There's just something about Super Mario World, whenever I play it, there's just something about it that just didn't feel as fun as the previous and later Mario games. I just couldn't get that into it. And that was a universal thing for me. When I first played it, I think, yeah, it was set up in a Kmart. I was like, oh boy, Super Mario World. Wow, this is the game I'll be playing soon because I want to get a Super Nintendo. I want to move up to 16-bit from this old 8-bit. You know, I'm still going to keep my old Nintendo Entertainment System. And it's like, I don't know, I just couldn't get into it. Anytime I'd play it, it just didn't feel that fun. I don't know how to... The visuals were great. Love the audio effects. Like when you're underground, there's like a certain amount of echo. Like there's like a lot of quality in that game. I try to have fun with. Basically, there were probably the three reasons why I got a Sega Genesis before I got my Super Nintendo, and the Sega Genesis became my main system during the 16-bit era, was Super Mario World, The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, and Ninja Turtles 4. Like, they were the first three games I noticed for the Super Nintendo. They were what I was most interested in, and they actually turned me away from the system. And I loved the first Zelda game on the Nintendo Entertainment System. I loved the second one. People shit on it all the time for not being like the first one. I don't know which Zelda game I love more, because they both had like this great sense of adventure. I really loved the 8-bit Zelda games, and the Nintendo 64 Zelda games brought my interest back a bit. I mean, that first Zelda game, the ability to save your game, moving from screen to screen, like every little screen, like the screen didn't scroll as you moved, the screen scrolled as you went off to the side of it, but every single area just felt like an environment to explore. It felt like adventure. Like, I really thought they captured a feeling of adventure really, really well, and it was the first game I played with the save feature. I love that first Zelda game. And as for Zelda 2, yeah, it's different. But when I think of exploring the map and the different places you go, like, I just think of, like, exploring in Zelda 2. Like, those two games just felt like adventure to me. Then I get into Zelda on the Super Nintendo, which I always fail to get into. You just feel like a guy that's good with a sword. Now, for that style game on the Super Nintendo, personally, I would gravitate more towards, I wish Soul Blazer was there. I loved Crusader Ascenti on the Sega Genesis. That was awesome. That was a similar style game, well, similar style gameplay. Illusion of Gaia is awesome, you know. But Zelda on the Super Nintendo, just couldn't get into it. Sorry, I know people are going to hate me for saying that. How dare you speak against Zelda and Super Mario World and Mario Kart? Yeah, I can't get into them. Just don't find them fun. I get bored with them extraordinarily fast. Sorry. But yeah, so obviously not all these games are going to be for me. I don't know how well they're going to win over future audiences of younger people. But you know what? It's awesome they're there, because they are icons of their time period. They are things that were used to market the Super Nintendo. They have to be there. They should be there. I'm glad they're there. I just wish there was a little more variety. And there is. Let me move along. Let's move along. All right. Let's see. Oh yeah, of course. I talked about Super Mario World and Super Mario Kart. But here's something awesome. Super Mario RPG and Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island. I fucking love Yoshi's Island. I should hate Yoshi's Island because it started off with the stork. And that was always a pet peeve of mine, especially when I was a kid, because I didn't understand why anybody would tell somebody, like, that was the story they tell kids. Where do babies come from? Well, they don't want to say the vagina. They don't want to talk about sperm. So they tell them it comes from a stork. And usually the stork got the baby from God. So it's kind of like they stuck religion into Super Mario World because it comes from the stork. Where does the stork get it? You know, it was just such bullshit. Like when I watch old Warner Brother cartoons and the baby was being delivered by the stork, it's like, okay, why did, it's like, yeah, I get how that's kind of funny. A drunk stork delivers the wrong baby to the wrong place in those old Warner Brother cartoons. But it was just such a stupid thing that anybody ever told their child that. It just became, like, kind of tainted that it's like, why? Why does anybody even want to think about the fact that somebody actually told their child that babies come from the fucking stork, or the stork delivers the babies? So that was always a pet peeve of mine, that they actually stuck that in a canonical Mario game. Was kind of like, oh, wow, that's... Well, Mario basically takes place in a fairy tale land. He eats the mushrooms to grow... I don't know, I can't help but think of Alice in Wonderland. Or drugs. They're magic mushrooms, after all. But whatever. Mario's basically taking place in a fairy tale realm, so why not have the stork deliver him? And actually, the story always was that Mario was born in Brooklyn. And they can say that he was being born when he was delivered by the stork, but he wasn't. He was an infant, but he must have been born in Brooklyn, New York, as those video game manuals and background information always used to say. The stork must have abducted him from Earth and took him to the Mushroom Kingdom through whatever sort of dimensional warp that cartoon stork travels through. It knew he had a great destiny, so it swiped him away from his crack-abusing mother and took him off to a better life in the Mushroom Kingdom. Him and his brother Luigi, who gets lost. And baby Mario, with the help of Yoshi, has to rescue baby Luigi. Now, I just shit all over the story, but that said, it's actually, for a character that's as fairy tale based as Mario seems to be, it's actually a pretty good origin story. And it's an awesome game to play. Yoshi's a little bit more floaty than other Mario characters control in that game, but you can actually kind of adjust him and you can fight against... When you feel like you're flying out of control, it feels like you can also fight against it too. And I really love the gameplay in it. The visuals are a little bit cartoony and look awesome, but they're a bit cartoony, so I could understand why this wouldn't be the model for all future Mario games after it. It shouldn't be. It's a little bit off, it's a little bit cartoony in that characteristic, but it still looks beautiful and is awesome in the context of the game itself. Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island, which should have been Super Mario World 0 Yoshi's Island, because it's a prequel, is fucking awesome. That's just great to have that game there. And as for Super Mario RPG, that one is also awesome. That's just awesome. Super Mario RPG is there. That's great. Now, to me, when I look at Super Mario RPG, I love that game. I absolutely love that game. It is awesome. When I break it down to what makes it awesome, is its use of Mario and the mythos of the Mario world. If you didn't have the characters like Mario and Bowser in there, it would have became an average, nothing special, generic role-playing game. But that story, when you throw the Mario characters in it, I really like. And it has new characters like Mallow. It has great characters. The fact that it takes place in the world or universe of Super Mario is awesome. That's basically what makes the game awesome. It's the perfect story for Mario to experience. That and Yoshi's Island, to me, those are the gems of 16-bit Mario. And if you look at Nintendo's own page, they'll show Mario Kart and Super Mario World in bigger form, more in your face on the page that promotes this, Nintendo's own page for this, and smaller images for Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island and RPG or whatever. Those smaller image treatment, not as heavily promoted. But those are the awesome games. Those are real, true gems of the 16-bit era, and that's fucking awesome that they're there. They're there with Mega Man X. That is just awesome. What else do they have? Alright, Super Street Fighter 2. I don't hate Street Fighter. I view it as overrated. I just don't care for it. I like 6-button controllers, but do I need 6 buttons in a fighting game? Not particularly. I like the mood, tone, and gameplay of Mortal Kombat more than Street Fighter. Not saying I hate Street Fighter. I'd rather play Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on the Nintendo Entertainment System than the Super Nintendo version of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Because I just don't care for how it copies Street Fighter's controls. Another game that copied Street Fighter's controls was Killer Instinct. And that would be awesome. I love Killer Instinct. Well, don't really full-blown love it, but I really, really like Killer Instinct. Now I'm coughing. Killer Instinct would be awesome on there. Super Street Fighter 2, Turbo, blah, 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 whatever, yeah. To me, it's overrated. Don't really care about it, but it's there. I don't hate it, so if it's right there in front of me, I might play it randomly. Not going to get too excited about it. In fact, I'm more excited about Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo being there than Punch-Out. Yeah, Punch-Out. Don't hate Punch-Out. I'd rather have it there than not be there. It's not exactly wasting space, but it's almost wasting space to me, because I just don't care, you know. I'll probably play it randomly, but it's nothing I'd ever seek out. Super Castlevania 4. You know what? I'll give that one a try. It never interested me very much. I did get into Castlevania Bloodlines on the Sega Genesis. Love that game. I loved Castlevania 2 because it had a real sense of adventure on the Nintendo Entertainment System. I'm really interested in the Castlevania game that was on the TurboGrafx 16. You know, something about whenever I saw images of Castlevania 4, it didn't look that interesting to me. And I know that the story is just basically a retelling of the Castlevania 1. At least that's what it is in the original Japanese version. So I never really gravitated towards it. I was more interested in playing the Nintendo Entertainment System version of Castlevania than Castlevania 4. But yeah, I'll look forward to playing it because I think I will find it fun. I just never really went to that one. I just never really gravitated towards that one. I never played it yet. So I'll look forward to playing Castlevania 4. Donkey Kong Country, like Super Mario World, Donkey Kong Country is a game that I tried to get into repeatedly. I think the first time I played it also was at a Kmart. They had it set up as. A friend of mine, the friend of mine who rented Super Mario World but didn't buy it. I mean, I have my copy of Super Mario World. It's the one that is joined together as part of Super Mario All-Stars. You know, the extra big Super Mario All-Stars that includes Super Mario World. That's the version I have on cartridge. As a friend of mine didn't even bother to buy Super Mario World, even though he was a big fan of Mario in the 8-bit era. He ran out and got Donkey Kong Country. I remember friends of mine playing it. I did build up a certain nostalgia for it. I really, really, really wanted to like Donkey Kong Country, okay? It wasn't a game that I wanted to dislike, because even before I played it, I knew it was going to have things that referenced the old Donkey Kong of the arcade and Atari 2600 and ColecoVision days. And I know there was a hinting reference to Mario in there. I wanted to love this game for its position in the Super Mario universe, or perhaps Super Mario Multiverse. As for all I know, this is a parallel reality that is connected to the regular Mario reality. I don't know how the geology of the Mario world works. Could be on the same planet. Could be in a parallel universe. I don't know. Not getting into that right now. But I wanted to love Donkey Kong Country. Just couldn't get into the gameplay. He played like a crippled Sonic the Hedgehog. You could roll into your enemies. You could jump onto your enemies. He just felt slow and not fun to move around. And if you love that game, awesome. If you grew up with that game, if you're given it as a Christmas present, or the Super Nintendo as a Christmas present, and you didn't have a lot else to play, I would expect you would have gotten used to it and loved it. But me at the time, I played it, I wanted to get into it, I couldn't, I moved on. I do have a lot of nostalgia for it, because a few of my friends actually played it quite a bit. One of my friends got it, liked it enough that he played it a bunch, but lost interest in it to the... Like, he probably would have got the sequel if he had enjoyed it more, but he just didn't bother with any of the sequels. And, yeah, Donkey Kong Country to me was another overrated title, like the first Super Mario World and the Super Nintendo version of Legend of Zelda. And some people are going to hate me for saying that, but that's just how I feel about it. I don't feel like it's something that's going to win over people that don't have nostalgia for it. But that said, I do have nostalgia for it. A friend of mine has a Super Nintendo cartridge. I myself have the Game Boy Advance version, like Super Mario World. I repeatedly tried to get into that game, but just never really got into it. Maybe one of these days I'll play it a bunch and just feel like keep playing it, but I just don't. But it's there, and it should be, because it is an incredibly iconic Nintendo game for the Super Nintendo. Okay, Kirby Superstar. I remember seeing Kirby games advertised for years. None of my friends had them. I never got around to picking them up for the original Game Boy. Never got them for the Super Nintendo until many, many years later when I finally got Kirby's Avalanche, because it's awesome! And it's basically the same as Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, except Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine has more interesting characters, more interesting music, well, actually absolutely awesome music, and more interesting visuals and environments and graphics, you know, just... But Kirby's Avalanche was awesome. But I never really got around to playing the old Game Boy and Super Nintendo Kirby games. Played as the character in Super Smash Bros. Brawl and then Melee, because I got Brawl before I got Melee. I'm not a big fan of the Nintendo 64 version of Super Smash Bros., but I love both Melee and Brawl, and I'm okay with the newer version, I'm just not as into. But when I finally got Kirby Superstar for the Nintendo DS, I loved it. Kirby played fun. Like, the gameplay is just fun. A bit easy, a little bit on the easy side, but I'm okay with that, because it's bloody fucking fun. I love Kirby. It's a great game. I remember the old cartoon show. Was kind of boring, but it was watchable, but a bit on the boring side, you know. It was something, wasn't annoying to watch. You could put it on in the background. Every now and then you might pay attention to it. It was probably way better in the original Japanese. You know, the character Kirby, it's a perfectly fine character. Not as iconic as Link or Mario, but, you know, Kirby's cool. I like Kirby, you know, silly little cute cartoon thing, you know. But the gameplay is awesome. I love the Kirby games. Kirby Superstar, playing the Super Nintendo version of that finally. That's something I'll look forward to. At the time that game would have came out, all my friends would have been well into their teenage years. Or perhaps early teen years. I'd have to stop and think about that for a minute. But, no, I mean, it's aimed at a younger audience, but the Kirby games are fucking fun. So, yay, Kirby's there. Awesome. That's absolutely awesome. Alright, let's move along. Oh, Kirby's Dream Course is there. Haven't played that one. Don't know that much about it. I thought I heard it was a golf game. Yeah, I'm not that interested in playing golf, but it's Kirby, so I'll check it out. You know, what can I say? It's not going to sell the system on me if it's really a golf-like game. You play golf? What is he playing? Kirby's Dream Course. I'm not sure. Don't care about sports, but I like Kirby, so I'm going to give that one a try. One day, eventually, if I manage to get a SNES Classic. You know, these things might be really fucking rare. It might be hard to get your hands on one. Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, I think one day I'll be playing Kirby's Dream Course, and I'll probably enjoy it more than Punch-Out or Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. But maybe not. I'll probably enjoy it more than Punch-Out. Alright, so Kirby's there. Kirby's awesome. Yeah, whatever. Alright, Final Fantasy 3. You know, I don't hate Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, but I understand the apathy towards that one just wasn't that exciting. Final Fantasy 2, I really like Final Fantasy 2. I was even okay with the bad... I never played that much of it, but I'm even okay with a bad translated Super Nintendo version of Final Fantasy 2. Is it better than, oh, say, Phantasy Star 2? No. Phantasy Star 2 holds up way better in just about everything. Graphics, sound, story, whatever, you know. So I remember there was a Console Wars episode they did where they put Final Fantasy 2. I know, most people call it Final Fantasy 4. I'm talking about the English Super Nintendo version, not the PlayStation or original Super Famicom version. So I'm calling them 2 and 3, okay? I'm using the names that are actually on the fucking box of the version that I'm talking about. I saw an episode of Console Wars where they put, like, Final Fantasy 2 up against Phantasy Star 2, and they gave it Final Fantasy 2. And when I was, like, looking at the two side by side, it's like, how can Final Fantasy 2... win? I mean, even side by side, Phantasy Star 2 looked so much better. Phantasy Star 2 is awesome. Final Fantasy 2 is pretty cool too. I really like Final Fantasy 2. But Final Fantasy 3 is the one that's included here. It's really iconic. People talked about it for years. People love that game, and those people are not me. Yeah, I know I'm pretty negative about this list here. I mean, there's so many Super Nintendo games I loved. Like Cybernator, I loved that game. Strike Gunner, the spaceship shooting game, I really loved that because it was a great two-player game, and the selection of extra weapons, like you pick a different weapon at each level. And you could play two-player, I already said that, which I thought was cool. I just really loved that game. I already said Cybernator, but I always go back to Cybernator. That was one of the first games I really loved on the Super Nintendo. Arcana! I loved Arcana! That was awesome! Illusion of Gaia, one of the best games ever. Chrono Trigger! Goddamn Chrono Trigger was fucking awesome! But Final Fantasy 3... I can't get into that one. Final Fantasy 3, a friend of mine had it. Another friend of mine lent me it. There's like, it's the greatest game ever, a lot of people said. Well, not everybody. In fact, some of my friends weren't that into it either. But, it's like, Final Fantasy 3 was like almost like the flagship for Super Nintendo role-playing games. And I couldn't get into it. I just remember playing it, thinking, well, I can play this, but I'm not really enjoying it. And I remember people really got into that part where it's like the train ride to the underworld and stuff like that. And you can use your healing items as weapons against this dead thing. You know, it's like, I'm like, nah, I'll just beat the hell out of it and get it. You know, I just didn't care. I remember that part of the game really got to me. I was already not into the game, and I remember I get to that part and I was like, okay, you need a train to go to the afterlife. Who built that fucking train? And why would the first ghosts know to build that train? Why? Why is there a train to the afterlife? Maybe it's just a manifestation of an interdimensional tunnel. I don't know, but it just... Nothing about Final Fantasy 3 was winning me over as I was playing through it. I just didn't get into the characters, the story, or the visuals, and the music might be iconic for role-playing games, but nothing really won me over. I don't hate it, but it's just the perfect example of a game that I find very hard to get into. Alright, so let's see. What can I move on to? Oh, Contra 3. Didn't play much of the Contra games, but I think I'll like Contra 3. I think it'll be one game that I'll play randomly a little bit. Earthbound is on there. That's awesome. Earthbound is on there. That's awesome. Earthbound. Why is that so awesome? I don't know. I never really played that much of Earthbound. I don't have a copy of it myself. I remember seeing it at a video game store. It looked like a game I'd like. It also looked like a game that would turn me off because Nintendo was known for being a little too kiddie, a little too kiddish, a little too aiming at ultra young kids. And I wanted my games more acceptable to a wide audience. I wanted less censorship. Nintendo really pissed me off in that area. And stuff about Earthbound had this kind of like, it's for children look. In fact, when I first played Illusion of Gaia and the character started off in the school, I thought to myself, okay, what kind of a childish game is this going to be? And then Illusion of Gaia turned out to be awesome. But as childlike and kid-based cartoony as Earthbound looks, I don't ever remember being repelled by that fact. I just remember just not having access to the game and never got into it. And it became a curiosity to me later on. And the more I heard about it, the more I saw of it, the more I think I would really like to play Earthbound. So I'm glad that Earthbound is there. Very glad. Secret of Mana is there. Secret of Mana is a game I played from beginning to end. Didn't really enjoy. Enjoyed it enough to play through it. Liked that there were 3 players. Liked that the computer would control 2 of them while you controlled 1, or you could have a friend play with you. You know, I liked a lot about that. The story was, I remember it as being okay. I remember it was being a bit silly in places. I remember traveling by cannonball or being shot out of a cannon or something like that. Was that, maybe I'm thinking of a different game. It's been a long time since I played Secret of Mana. I remember thinking that was stupid. It might work for Super Mario or Sonic the Hedgehog, but yeah. Am I thinking of Secret of Mana anymore? I don't know. But I do remember I played Secret of Mana from beginning to end a long time ago. I didn't hate it. It was good enough I could play through it. But I viewed it as nothing special. It's a game I'm nostalgic towards it. I kind of want to play the game because I played it such a long time ago. But that's basically it for me in Secret of Mana. To me, it's a very non-spectacular game. I remember thinking something about the way the controls worked in it, that it was a little bit backwards compared to a different role-playing game that I kind of preferred at the time. I mean, if you have access to Squaresoft and Enix's old games, because Square Enix have merged, Final Fantasy III, I kind of understand, even though I would not have gone for Final Fantasy III. I'd rather Chrono Trigger. Secret of Mana, I'd rather Illusion of Gaia, or really just about anything, maybe Soul Blazer, something else. Like Secret of Mana, nah, it's not going to win me over. But I'm glad it's there. I kind of wish something else was in its place, but I'll take it over Street Fighter 2 Turbo. I'll take it over Punch-Out, you know. I'd take it over Donkey Kong Country or the first Super Mario World, even though Super Mario World and Donkey Kong Country pretty much have to be there because of how iconic they are. But you know what? I'm glad Secret of Mana is there, so I'll play it. And the last game I see here is Super Ghouls and Ghosts, a game that I think I'll like. I have a little bit of exposure to the series. Didn't get too into it. Don't hate it. Don't love it. Think I'll enjoy it. A lot of people think it's the greatest thing ever. So it's probably good that it's there. And I guess I'll end with that. I think I'll enjoy that game on there. But it's not going to make a big difference to me. That game is also on, I'm not sure if it's necessarily, but that game is also on the Retrobit Generations device. Yeah, Super Ghouls and Ghosts, it's there for you to play, and I think a lot of people will like it. I think I'll like it more than Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo or Punch-Out, or possibly more than Secret of Mana, but it doesn't really faze me a whole lot personally. But I know it might seem strange that I'm really excited for this device and there's so many games that I'm apathetic for, but even the games that I'm apathetic for, a lot of them are games I haven't played in a long time. They were games I didn't bother to collect, and I kind of want to take a look at them again. And of the games that are there that I really want to play, even though I already have a version of Mega Man X, I'm looking forward to playing Mega Man X on this again. I already have Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island, but I'm looking forward to playing it again. I'm looking forward to trying Star Fox 2 because it was never before released. I think I will enjoy it, you know. There's a lot of stuff there worth playing, and even the games that come off to me as, whatever, are still worth playing. And this is the Super Nintendo. Sure, I'd love it if Cybernator was in there, the Seventh Saga, if that was there, if Chrono Trigger, the Illusion of Gaia, finally someone released Terranigma to North America, you know, some Soul Blazer, you know, some of that stuff. Oh boy, wouldn't I love that, you know, stick on Ninja Warriors, stick on, I don't know, lots of stuff. I don't know, there was a lot of randomly good games for the Super Nintendo. I loved the 16-bit era. And I love the Super Nintendo, and I think I'm going to enjoy this. I'm looking forward to this. Even more than the Nintendo Entertainment System equivalent that came out, last year. Looking forward to this. I definitely am looking forward to this. I'm excited for it. Yeah, even the games that I view as overrated, still, I'm glad they're there as opposed to not being there. So, hey, I am looking forward to this. And yeah, I'm just rambling on about that. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and feel free to check out more of my videos. Yeah, I probably earned a lot of hate for not loving the Zelda and Mario games on the Nintendo, the Super Nintendo, more than any other game out there. Some people really hate it when you. There's a lot of fanboys out there, and well, I'll put it this way. The Sega Genesis became my favorite 16-bit video game console, but I had been a big Nintendo fan prior to that. And as much as being interested in Sonic the Hedgehog, the Ghostbusters game on the Sega Genesis, and the Power Base Converter, 3 selling points that drew my attention towards the Sega Genesis, the other 3 selling points for me were Super Mario World didn't win me over, the Zelda game didn't win me over, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4 didn't win me over. And those are loved games, and I have nothing against you for loving those games. I can actually find a little bit of enjoyment in those games, especially the Turtles one, just not as much as I would have hoped. Yeah, the Super Nintendo is a system I love. It had a lot of stuff that I viewed as overrated. It went into the 16-bit era with a whole lot of fandom behind it. People who loved the Nintendo Entertainment System did not want to let go of the name Nintendo. It had that going for it, which is actually a sign of how awesome the Sega Genesis was, that it actually broke through that market stranglehold and that fandom that Nintendo had surrounding it that it had gained in the 8-bit era. But I'm not here to praise the Genesis. I'm here to praise the Super Nintendo, because the Super Nintendo was also an awesome system, and I love it, and my voice is a little bit dried out today, and going on about this isn't helping, but I love the 16-bit era. I'd love it if Konami would do something similar, because they own the name TurboGrafx. They own like a whole bunch of those trademarks. It would be like Konami finally doing something good again, so I guess that's not going to happen. But yeah, Nintendo's doing awesome things by releasing these old consoles again, even if they're dedicated systems. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to this. And that's all I can say is this is awesome. I hope I can get my hands on one. I wasn't that excited about the NES Classic, even though there was... on the NES Classic, less of the games seemed overrated to me. The Super Nintendo one I'm more interested in, even though a lot of the games are overrated, in my opinion. But it still looks awesome. Looking forward to this. Yeah. So, yeah, I think you should check it out. Let's all keep following information on the SNES Classic. And holy crap, if you made it to the end of this, feel free to check out some more of my videos. If you enjoyed me rambling on about the Super Nintendo Classic, the SNES Classic, whatever, yeah, feel free to check out more of my videos. Not that long ago, I recorded a video talking about the Retron 77, which is something else that interests me. Yeah, I just recorded that last night. I think I have just about everything I need to edit together to make this video, but I'll probably be late uploading it because I got stuff I want to do later today. Returning to the Cavalier after an away mission to Halifax. And stuff I want to do tomorrow. Holy crap, will I ever upload this video? I don't know. But anyway, yeah. So, feel free to check out more of my videos if you actually made it through to the end. Holy crap, is anybody still watching? Did anybody watch in the first place? Wow. Anyway, Talk to you in another video. Bye. And I think it's not even an hour until Canada Day. 11:17.